announced that the U.S. will be moving 2 nuclear submarines in light of remarks made by former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev. Trump and Medvedev have traded jabs in recent days after the president shortened the deadline for Russia to make a ceasefire with Ukraine.
In the high-stakes theater of American power, there is no moment more critical than the peaceful transfer of presidential authority. But what happens when the most grave responsibility of all, the power to unleash nuclear disaster, doesn't follow the script? Let's find out. It's a story about a deadly briefcase that never left the side of Donald Trump. A few years back in 2017, on an inauguration day in Washington, a pivotal transition of power occurred that extended far beyond the public oath of office and the ceremonial handshake. As President Barack Obama and President-elect Donald Trump met at the U.S. Capitol, a nameless military aide hovered nearby, shouldering a satchel that contained one of the most profound symbols of presidential authority, the nuclear football. Within this briefcase was a hardened digital device, often called the biscuit, which held the codes necessary to authorize a strategic nuclear strike. The moment Donald Trump officially became president, this aide and the satchel silently shifted to his side, marking the instantaneous transfer of the sole authority to initiate a nuclear response. From that precise instant, the power to set in motion a chain of events capable of ending millions of lives in under an hour rested with one individual. This monumental responsibility has since prompted significant discussion and analysis among experts and observers, focusing on the mechanisms and safeguards within the U.S. command structure. The central question that arises is how a system built for swift response can also ensure deliberate and rational decision-making, especially given concerns about any leader's potential for impulsivity. It is important to note that President Trump has since moderated his earlier stance on nuclear weapons, publicly stating he would be the last person to use them, while stopping short of ruling out their use entirely. Furthermore, the process is not a solitary one. While the president holds the ultimate and exclusive authority to order a launch, the execution of that order involves a chain of command, including senior figures such as the Secretary of Defense. According to nuclear policy experts like Mark Fitzpatrick of the International Institute for Strategic Studies, there are no legislative or judicial checks that can prevent a president from issuing a launch order. However, a procedural buffer exists between the command and its execution. The Secretary of Defense has a constitutional duty to verify the order, a step designed to confirm its authenticity. In a highly unlikely scenario where a president's mental stability was in serious question, a Secretary of Defense could, in theory, refuse to comply. Such an act would be considered a monumental act of insubordination, and the president would have the immediate power to relieve him of duty and pass the instruction to the next in the line of succession. This intricate protocol underscores a foundational tension in modern governance: the need for a decisive nuclear deterrent balanced against the immense, singular power vested in the office of the presidency. In the high-stakes realm of presidential power, the protocols for the most grave decision imaginable, the authorization of a nuclear strike, are designed for both ultimate security and immediate response. While the president holds the sole authority to initiate such an action, the 25th Amendment to the U.S., the Constitution provides a theoretical, though politically monumental, safeguard. This amendment allows the vice president, if backed by a majority of the cabinet, to declare the president mentally incapable of discharging his duties. In practice, however, the operational sequence for a nuclear launch is a meticulously choreographed procedure that begins with the commander-in-chief and the infamous nuclear football, the briefcase that accompanies the president at all times. Inside this case resides a curated black book of predetermined strike options, a menu of catastrophic possibilities from which the president must choose. To authenticate the order, the president uses a unique identification card, a device so critical that presidential lore tells of a past commander-in-chief who once temporarily lost his after sending a suit jacket to the dry cleaners. Once the president has selected an option and verified his identity, the command is relayed through the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff to the Pentagon's command center, and then, using sealed authentication codes, onward to U.S. Strategic Command Headquarters at Offutt Air Base in Nebraska. The final command is transmitted via encrypted codes that must match those held in the safes of launch crews, who are then tasked with executing the order. This system exists within a global landscape defined by a delicate and terrifying balance of power. The United States and Russia collectively possess over 90% of the world's nuclear warheads, arsenals of such scale that they hold the capacity to destroy each other's major cities multiple times over. As of recent estimates, Russia maintained a larger deployed strategic arsenal, with its warheads distributed across a formidable nuclear triad of land-based intercontinental ballistic missiles, submarines, and strategic bombers. Under a sustained modernization program, Russia has invested heavily in upgrading its forces, including the deployment of mobile missile systems that travel through vast tunnel networks deep beneath Siberia to enhance their survivability. The United States' strategic warheads, while fewer in number, are similarly deployed via the Triad, a structure designed to ensure a retaliatory strike can always be executed. These weapons are housed in hardened underground silos across the American heartland, aboard stealthy submarines patrolling the world's oceans unseen, and at air bases ready to be loaded onto long-range bombers. This structure contrasts with the nuclear posture of a close ally like the United Kingdom, which maintains a much smaller fleet of strategic warheads. The core of the British deterrent is its submarine force, with the Royal Navy continuously keeping at least one ballistic missile submarine armed and undetected at sea, ensuring a constant and secure retaliatory capability. This global standoff, underpinned by complex launch protocols, continues to define an era of existential risk. In the stark calculus of global security, the mechanics of nuclear warfare are governed by physics that offer almost no room for second thoughts. An intercontinental ballistic missile, or ICBM, is a weapon of unimaginable speed and force, capable of traversing the globe at velocities exceeding 17,000 miles per hour. Soaring high above the Earth's atmosphere before arcing back down to its target, it covers nearly 4 miles every single second. The window for a response to such an attack is terrifyingly narrow. A land-based missile launched from Russia toward the United States would take roughly half an hour to reach its destination. The threat could be even more immediate from the sea, where a submarine lurking covertly off a coastline could slash that warning time to a mere 12 minutes, leaving a national command authority with moments to decide between a false alarm and a genuine civilization-ending strike. This compressed timeline defines the immense burden placed upon the President of the United States, who must process this information and make a decision with irreversible consequences. Once an ICBM is launched, it cannot be called back. It is a commitment finalized upon ignition. Conversely, a decision to hold fire could result in the nation's own land-based missiles being destroyed in their silos by an incoming barrage, crippling any chance of a retaliatory strike. The process that unfolds in these critical minutes is shaped profoundly by the nature of the threat itself. According to insights from a former senior White House official, a premeditated, preemptive strike against another nation would likely involve an extensive deliberative process, drawing in the Vice President, the National Security Advisor, and key members of the cabinet. However, in the scenario of an detected inbound attack, with radar screens tracking objects minutes from impact, the procedural landscape changes dramatically. In such a moment of supreme crisis, the president operates with extraordinary latitude, empowered by law and necessity, to make the sole, final decision on whether to launch a retaliatory strike, a decision that must be made in the span of a heartbeat that could echo through history forever. The unresolved nature of this transition leaves a shadow over the meticulous protocols designed to prevent a constitutional and global crisis.